Okay, so NBA free agency is over, and today I am going to be reviewing the NBA free agency. Now, this is going to be a two-part series, so I'm basically going to explain how this works. What you're watching is part one, where I go over all of the re-signings in free agency. And in part two, which I might upload tomorrow or in 2 days, I am going to be going over the new signings. So I'm just going to go over every notable re-sign in this episode, kind of just, briefly explain it in cut 30 seconds, and yeah, let's get right into it. So the first notable re-sign is Bobby Portis re-signs with the Milwaukee Bucks for 2 years, $9 million. So Bobby Portis was a key piece for the Milwaukee Bucks coming off the bench in their championship run, and the fact that they got him $9 million, that's $4.5 million a year for such a great valuable piece, that's a steal for Milwaukee. So the next notable re-sign is Jarrett Allen re-signs with the Cleveland Cavaliers, 5 years, $100 million. So the Cleveland Cavaliers got Jarrett Allen in the blockbuster James Harden trade. They didn't really give up much, but I don't know how I feel about this signing. Jarrett Allen is a great interior defender, nice young rim protector, and it's a pretty good signing. I just don't think he was worth $100 million, but I assume that teams like the Raptors and other teams in need of a defensive center were going out for him, so Cleveland had to pay him a lot. So he's locked up in Cleveland for 5 more years, and I guess that's okay. So our next re-sign is Trae Young, re-signs with the Atlanta Hawks. He re-signed with 5 years, $170 million. So that's $34 million a year. Now, I see no problem with this. Trae Young, he solidified himself as a superstar this year. So you give a superstar a max, and Trae Young got just that. Nothing but great for the Atlanta Hawks. Honestly, it's not a problem. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the Miami Heat re-signing Jimmy Butler and Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson signed with the Heat for 5 years, $90 million. He is 26, so I'm not really sure how that's going to work because by the time his contract ends, he will be 31. But he provides spacing for the Miami Heat, and overall, he's just a good sharpshooter that the Miami Heat need with their team. He fits well, and I like that signing, $18 million a year. Jimmy Butler signs a 4-year, $184 million, and I'm doing the calculation, that's $46 million a year. That does not seem realistic, so maybe it was 5 years. I don't know, my notes say 4-year, but it doesn't matter. 4 or 5 years, Jimmy Butler, the star piece for the Miami Heat. Obviously, he's a superstar. He needs to get paid good money, and he just got that this offseason. It seems like he loves Miami, and I think Miami's going to be pretty good with Butler leading the way in years to come. The next re-signing is Mike Conley to the Utah Jazz for 3 years, $72 million. That is $24 million a year. Now, my opinion on this trade, I think that this is a good signing. I mean, the Jazz need a starting point guard, and Mike Conley was great last year, and I don't see any problem with this re-signing. I mean, it's not too much of an overpay. Maybe $24 million for regressing Mike Conley is, I guess that's a bit too much, but it's nothing that you really have to, that you're going to lose sleep about. It's not way too much of an overpay, just a bit, and maybe there were other teams that wanted Conley, which is why they had to overpay. I'm not sure. It's an okay signing. Nerlens Noel signs with the New York Knicks, 3 years, $32 million, which is $10.6 million. I am a huge fan of this signing. Nerlens Noel played amazing last year on the New York Knicks, especially in terms of defense. He was one of the best defenders in the NBA last year. He is just a block getter, an amazing rim protector. He's just an elite paint defender in general. And the Knicks snagging him for $10.6 million, that's a steal. Even if he comes off the bench, he'll provide great defense, making the Knicks all the better. Derrick Rose re-signs with the Knicks for 3 years, $43 million. That is $14.3 million per year. I really like this signing for the Knicks. Derrick Rose was amazing ever since he got traded to the New York Knicks, especially in the playoffs. And by getting 3 more years with $14 million, even if he comes off the bench, I can definitely see him being a great role player for the New York Knicks. Tim Hardaway Jr. signs to the Dallas Mavericks for 4 years, $74 million. That's $18.5 million a year. Now, Tim Hardaway's a great player and all. He's a great sharpshooter for the Mavericks and overall just a great role player. But $18.5 million is kind of a lot, especially when they could have gone out and gotten some other pieces. I don't know, 18.5, like, he is still a good player, but I think 18.5 is a tad bit too much for him. But nonetheless, it's an okay signing, probably one of the worst signings. Gary Trent Jr. re-signs with the Toronto Raptors for 3 years, $54 million, which is about $18 million a year. This is a pretty good signing for the Toronto Raptors, especially when Gary Trent Jr. got traded to the Raptors at trade deadline. He was great for them in the second half of the season. And yeah, I would give this a pretty good signing. Chris Paul signs with the Phoenix Suns for 4 years, $120 million, which is $30 million a year. Now, this is probably one of the more biggest re-signings behind Kawhi Leonard, but I'm not a fan of this signing. Chris Paul, yes, he's still a good player, and Phoenix will probably go far in the playoffs next year because of him, but he is 36, and in 4 years he'll be 40, and if you really want to pay Chris Paul $30 million until he's 40, that is a bit of an overpay. He's still a very skilled player. I just think it's too much of an overpay. Not a terrible signing, but could have been better. Maybe if they gave him like $100 million or $90 million, but meh. Cameron Payne signs with the Phoenix Suns for 3 years, $19 million, which is $6.3 million. I love this signing for the Phoenix Suns. Cameron Payne is such a quality player now. He's really developed from nobody into a great role player, especially this playoffs. He's been great. $6.3 million is nothing for a guy like Cameron Payne. All jokes aside, he's a really great backup point guard to have, and I like this signing a lot. Norman Powell re-signs with the Trailblazers for 5 years, $90 million, which is $18 million. Now, as a Raptors fan, I got to see Norman Powell play for us for the first half of the season, and this guy was amazing. Ever since arriving to Portland, he has still been great alongside Dame and CJ. Now, 5 years, $90 million. That is great for Powell. It's very underpaid. Like, Powell should be making more. $18 million is really nothing. Tim Hardaway's making more than him. But Blazers really won this signing because Powell is worth way more than $18 million. And yeah, he's going to provide great scoring, wing scoring, and defense for the Blazers. I like this signing a lot. Rashaan Holmes stays with Sacramento, signing 4 years, $55 million. That's $13.75 million. And that's a big steal. Rashaan Holmes is usually a bench guy. Actually, I'm not sure if he's starting nowadays, but for the most part, I see him as a bench player, but he is a great center to have. For Sacramento, he'll be a role player. He can even step up and maybe score like 15 points per game. As for 13.75, that's okay. That's like just about a fair amount for him. Blake Griffin signs a 1-year deal with the Nets for a minimum amount. Now, this is obviously, this is great for the Nets because Blake Griffin, he's not athletic as he used to be back in the day, but he's still a player that you would like in your rotation, maybe the 7th or 8th guy. And if he does get injured, you're paying him minimum, so you're not losing a terrible amount of money. When you get a veteran on a minimum deal, it's always great. And I think Blake Griffin partly just wants to win a ring, so I think that's why he accepted it. But overall, it's a good signing. There's nothing really to complain about. Will Barton re-signs with the Nuggets for 2 years, $32 million. Now, I am not a fan of this signing. Don't get me wrong. Will Barton is a great player, a great bench piece to have. But $16 million a year is kind of an overpay. He's getting older. He's injured a lot now. And he's still, I guess he's a quality player. But just $16 million isn't worth it. I'm not a fan of this signing. John Collins signs a 5-year, $125 million deal with the Atlanta Hawks. That is $25 million a year. Personally, I'm fine with this signing. It was no secret that John Collins would re-sign. He was a restricted free agent. So you kind of have to pay restricted free agents a little bit more. this was a tad overpaid, but John Collins is young, and even though he had a down year, he looks still promising in the future. Honestly, I like this signing a lot. Taylon Horton Tucker signs a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Lakers, which is $10 million a year. Personally, I'm not a fan of this trade because Taylon Horton Tucker, the next season or 2 seasons, he's going to be at the bottom of the rotation, being like the 8th or 9th guy. And you shouldn't really be paying your 8th or 9th guy $10 million. He is young and promising, but with how deep the Lakers are, I don't really see the need for this signing. I would say that this is an okay signing, one of the worst ones. But Stephen Curry signs a 4-year, $215 million deal with the Warriors. That's crazy. $53 million a year, about that, if my notes are right. That's $53.75 million a year. And that's not even an overpay. Steph Curry just had the best season of his career at like 32 or 33, however old he is. Honestly, it's not even an overpay. The Warriors are going to be great next year with Klay Thompson and their rookies, Kuminga, and signing Otto Porter to minimum deals. And this is honestly not even a bad sign because Steph Curry's the best player on the Warriors, so you got to give him a max deal. Ken Burch signs a 3-year, $20 million deal with the Toronto Raptors. That's $6.6 million. Personally, I like this signing. When Ken Burch left Orlando and came to the Raptors, he balled out for us, being one of our best defenders and providing a starting center for us. And $6 million is nothing, especially if we start him next year. He's not like one of the best centers, but he's still average, and I like this signing a lot for the Raptors. Julius Randle signs a 4-year, $117 million deal with the New York Knicks, which is $29.25 million. The Knicks had a lot of cap space heading into this offseason, with their highest paying guy being like Julius Randle with $19 million. And the rest of the guys didn't really make a lot, so they put that money to good use, signing Evan Fournier, Kemba. I'll get to all that in the next part. But they mainly signed Julius Randle for $29 million. I'm fine with that. Julius Randle just had the best year of his career, and I think he might have another good year next year, and I like the signing a lot. Now for our final 2 signings. Luca Doncic stays with Dallas for 5 years, $207 million. That is a lot of money for like a 22-year-old. That's $41.4 million. And honestly, the signing isn't bad because you got to pay your star players, and Luca is a star player. He is probably top 10 in the league, and he deserves to be paid the max. And he got the max, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with this signing. Our final notable re-sign is Kawhi Leonard stays with the Clippers 4 years, $176.3 million. So that comes out to about $44 million. We all expected that Kawhi would stay with the Clippers, and he did. Honestly, this isn't a problem. He's going to miss most of next season. Maybe he'll come back for the playoffs with his ACL sprain or tear. But this is not a bad signing at all because they're your star players. You kind of have to just re-sign them. And honestly, $44 million is great for Kawhi, and I like this signing a lot. So that's going to wrap up part 1 of my free agency review, the re-signs. Be sure to subscribe, and hopefully in the next couple days I can get out part 2 where I'm going to go over all the signings. That should be a good episode. Just be sure to subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.